Hi, minasan. So we are now on lesson 10. Konnichiwa, everyone. So this lesson 10 is an important lesson for us because this will enables us to ask directions. And also vice versa, also to understand the directions that we're receiving, especially useful for trips, no, especially visiting Japan. But of course, again, at the end of the day, mas lamang talaga if you can speak Japanese sa Japan kasi it really connects you with the local people, okay? Especially if you are visiting yung mga rural places natin. So that's an advantage. Now, I guess what we have learned so far these lessons, no? So we have lesson 2 and lesson 3 still about directions or finding objects or things. However, that lesson is quite limited in two ways. Number one, you need to be visually, both the speaker and the listener should be visually seeing the objects or capable of seeing the object. Okay, example. Ote araiwa, doko desu ka? Where is the toilet? A client or a guest in the hotel is asking me that. So your answer would be, Ote araiwa achira desu or Ote araiwa sochira desu, because you can easily point it out and it's visually possible to see the signs or the toilet, right? So that is one possible application of lesson 2 and 3. However, it's quite limited. No? What if the toilet is onto the second floor? What if the toilet is inside a conference hall? So of course that could not be possible. And second thing, if we're not capable of accompanying him or escorting our the person is asking this question, so it might not be quite practical. So just basically just give instructions na lang how to get there. Uh, of course, the second option that it has is, of course, let's say if the toilet is in the second floor. So you can say, "O terai wa nikai desu," diba? You can say it's on the second floor. However, syempre, in the second floor, pagbaba ni guest, magtatanong pa rin siya. So of course, still does not really solve the answer, or I mean, solve the problem at all, right? Because you need to have a reference place or reference object for you to direct the directions. Okay, so this lesson is very useful for that kind of situation. So it's quite an advance in a way of giving instruction for direction and receiving instruction for direction as well. So let's move in. Okay, so here's the topic that we're going to discuss. It's just 5. So ang pinaka-highlight would be item number 4. So that is how to give instruction or how to receive and give instruction, particularly describing the locality of or the location of a place or an object using a reference point. Okay, so now item number 1 is basically delineates the very basic of Arimasu and Imasu. So dapat alam natin siya. Next is, of course, the use of particle ni for place. And 3 is about, I'm going to try or imply to state that there is a object or person or phenomenon that exists in this particular place. Second, number 4 would be, sorry for that, the highlight, of course, giving instruction or direction using a reference point. And finally, particle ya, which is some sort of equivalent of n, pero there is quite a subtle difference, no? And I'm going to compare it with particle to, so later on. Okay, so let's first move with arimas and imas. Both verbs has the same meaning, which equivalents of to exist or to have. So basically to exist or to have. So when you exist, if you are describing something that exists or you are existing, we use the verb arimas and mas. So why have two verb for one phenomenon or one verb or two Japanese verb for one English equivalent? Okay. So in Japanese, it's very important for you to distinguish between inanimate and animate. Now, why? Because if you're talking to animate objects, okay, we are using arimas. Okay, so it talks about mostly for place and inanimate objects. Okay, arimas. So to exist, example, pencil wa gakko ni arimasu. There is a pencil that exists in the school, or in more subtle or more natural way of saying that is there is a pencil at school. So basically, that's how we translate it. Now, for the imas, ganun din. Kasi it's talking about a moving or in animate objects. So example of animate object is a cat, dog, and me, and you. And of course, those objects that are capable of moving. Example would be vehicle. But vehicle is quite a tricky object because it could move. Okay, it might be moving or it could also stop. Okay, pwede siya maging inanimate. So anyway, we won't study that far. So we're just going to identify if the object that you're talking is number one, moving, number two, capable of moving on its own, and number three, we are expecting it to move. Okay, so a book is not capable of moving. A book in our mind is not moving at all. You just see a book that's quite steady. And number three, and we are all expecting or anticipating that a book is, just a book. It's not capable of moving on its own, right? So yun siya. So now let's have more example. For inanimate objects, these are things that are not capable of moving. We are not expecting them to move. And of course, in any other circumstances, in normal circumstances, they are not moving on its own volition. So for example, sushi nga arimas, do we have a sushi or is the restaurant have sushi? Or parang meron ba sila sushi here? So food is not moving. It's not expected to move at all. Okay. Now, if the sushi, let's say it's a fish, saka na nga imas. Kasi yung fish, gumagalaw siya. Kahit sabihin mo wala sa tubig, it's still moving. So it's still alive. Now, if the fish is now dead, okay, it's a dry fish. So pwede mo na sabihin, dry fish nga arimas. Do you have dry fish? Because it's steady. It's still, it's not moving. Okay. Next, izuga doko ni arimasu ka? Where is the chair? So where does the chair exist? Or where does the chair located? So nasaan na yung chair? So where is the chair? Okay. So these are some example. Next, for imas, basically it's a verb to depict that the object person is existing. So it's an animate objects. Okay. So example, dog. Inu ga imasu ka? Do you have a dog? Kasi syempre, if I use inu nga arimasu ka, do you have a dog? So either it's a stuffed toy or the dog is, preserved dog. So baka embalm na siya. Next, sensei ga doko ni imasu ka? Where is the teacher? Or where does the teacher exist? So nasaan si teacher? So basically, it's similar with the casual expression that we have. Doko, sensei wa doko desu ka? Sensei wa dochira desu ka? Diba? Similar siya. Okay, let's move on item number 2. Item number 1 is quite easy, right? Arimas for non-moving things and imas for moving things. Okay. For case of vehicle, you should be mindful whether you're describing the vehicle using a pretense that's already parked. So you're going to use arimas. If you're describing the vehicle, it's moving, so you can use imas. Okay. For number 2, particle ni. So particle ni, our previous lesson, especially lesson 6, is somewhat related with particle e because it's commonly or interchangeably, or it could be both used for each other as a substitute. Okay. So for example, a place and particle e or place plus particle ni is equals to the destination. For example, I will use this example. Tokyo ni ikimasu. So I will go to Tokyo. Tokyo e ikimasu. I will go to Tokyo. Both are same. Wala naman siyang difference. The only difference is the particle e emphasize the movement, okay, that you are existing somewhere out there and you're going to Tokyo. While particle ni there in Tokyo ni ikimasu, basically it highlights the specification or the specific point Tokyo as the locality. So ni marks specific location, time, and person. So that is why we use particle ni a lot of times. So in our previous lessons, right, we use particle ni per person for time, for object, etc. So because it's quite useful to mark the specific location. Okay. So far in advanced lesson, wala pa naman tayong particle ni object, no? It's morely particle ni person, particle ni time, particle ni place. So yun siya. Now, this is similarly in context. No? We want to mark the place in where the thing exists. So particle ni is perfect for that job because basically it marks a specific location. So example would be Tokyo ni Imasu. When you say Tokyo ni ikimasu, so ibig sabihin I'm going to Tokyo. Tokyo ni imasu, I'm in Tokyo. So I'm living or I'm existing now in Tokyo. So next example, kuruma nga ginko no mae ni arimasu. Ginko no mae ni, ginko which is bank, mae front. Ginko no, so bank of or at the bank's front. Okay. Parang ginko no mae at the bank's front, parang sa harapan ng bangko. Kuruma nga ginko no mae ni arimasu. There is a car that exists at the front of the bank, or there is a car at the front of the bank. At the front of the bank. Next, watashi tachi wa toshokan ni imasu. We are in the library. Okay. Now, hindi naman niya minention kung ito nga yung mahirap dito. Kaya importante may preposition siya. Nasaan ba siya? Nasa loob, sa labas. So, most likely from this statement, watashi tachi wa toshokan ni imasu. So, we presume that we are inside the library. So, most of the time, or most cases, siguro 80% nasa loob kami ng library. We're not in front, we're not outside, and we're not at the door of the library. We are probably inside the library. Next. Osake ga Honda na ni arimasu. Okay. Osake, which is wine, nga Honda na, which is a bookshelf, okay, arimasu, which is ibig sabihin there is a okay, hindi natin nahanap ang Honda na, hindi natin nahanap ang bookshelf, ang nahanap mo ay wine. Osake ga, kasi siya yung pinaka-importante, siya yung subject of the sentence. Honda na ni, Honda na refers as a location. Kasi both are objects, right? Pero ang purpose kasi ng Hondana here, hindi siya object, but it's the locality because Hondana is, we're referring it as a bookshelf, a place. Okay? So yun po, sometimes we use object as a reference per place, particularly if we're looking for objects that are small or capable of being stored at that kind of objects. Okay? So let's move on in particle or item number 3. Item number 3 is pretty easy. Madali lang siya. Okay. N2 ni, which refers to the place and where the object exists. N1 nga. Ibig sabihin, this is the object or a person, a thing that we are trying to highlight as something that exists or something that is currently existing or possessing or having. Okay. So example, Osake ga Honda na ni arimasu. There is a wine or a sake in the bookshelves. Okay. Next, reisoko, which is a refrigerator. Reisoko ni ringo to mikan nga arimasu. There is a apple and oranges. Wala naman sinabing inside, but sinabi niya lang reisoko. Reisoko ni. Diba? Reisoko ni lang siya. Wala siyang sinabi kung meron siya, pero presumptively, it's inside. Okay. So I could say that there is a apple and orange in the ref. Hindi natin alam kung sa labas, sa loob, sa taas. Okay. Sinabi niya lang nasa ref. Okay. So, yun po. Next. Okay, item number 4. So, remember yung problema natin sa ref, di ba? Reisoko ni ringo to mikan ga arimasu. Di natin alam kung nasa loob siya, nasa labas, nasa taas. Kasi pwede siyang nasa taas, pwede nasa gilid, pwedeng nasa loob, or pwedeng nasa labas lang ng ref. Or katabi ng ref. Or nasa harap ng ref. Diba? Hindi natin alam. Katulad rin siya nung isang ito, yung watashi tachi wa toshokan ni imasu. Hindi mo alam kung nasaan sila, nasa loob ba, nasa labas, nasa gilid, or nasa ano. Kasi nga, wala siyang reference point or wala siyang preposition. Yung preposition natin, particularly itong pattern na to, en, wa, or ga, it's up to you, and which is and to, which is normally a place, and then no preposition. And of course, don't forget particle ni because we are specifying the place. No? Example, kuruma ga ginko no umae ni arimasu. There is a car at the front of the bank. Kasi very specific siya. Yung ginko is a place. No. Saan sa place na yon? Or saan sa bangko? Sa harap, sa likod, sa taas, sa baba, sa ilalim. Sabi niya, mae, or in front. So basically, ginko no mae ni arimasu. So it's in the front of the bank. Next. Sensei ga eiga no migi ue ni imasu. Okay, very specific siya. Sensei ga, si sensei. Sensei eiga, which is referring to, di ba, eiga movie. Okay. Eiga movie. Siguro ang tinutukoy, dapat kasi eiga kan ka eh. Tinutukoy niya siguro, it's either a movie literally or baka na he's referring to the movie theater, okay? Or baka movie talaga siya, okay? Okay. So, hindi natin alam ha. Eiga, okay. Eiga, no. Migi uwe ni. So, migi is right, upper right, upper right. So, most likely, baka movie talaga to. Or pwede siyang nasa theater, pero medyo funny yun. Okay, mas maganda siguro sabihin na lang seat number, mas okay siya. Anyway, migi ue ni imasu. So, the teacher exists at the upper right, okay, upper right of the movie. Okay. So perhaps he's painting out the movie itself. Next. What about, let's say, simple na lang natin. Pwede ba natin siyang sabihin other ways without saying arimasu or imasu? Yes, pwede. So that is the purpose why we have lesson 1, okay, at the very start of this course. Why? Because it means to say that watashi wa argel desu. I exist as Argel, or I have Argel as me. Parang ganun siya, no? Or you can simply say both have the same logic would be kuruma nga ginko no ue, or kuruma nga ginko no mae desu. So it has the same meaning with kuruma nga ginko no mae ni arimasu. Same lang siya. And of course, same thing with sensei ga eiga no migi ue desu. So it means to say it's the same thing. So ganun. So what do you notice? When we use the des form, we remove the arimasu, the verb, and we remove the particle ni because there is no need for you to have particle ni because des is a special verb. So basically, des is serving as a linking verb. Okay? So yun po siya. So the difference is no particle ni, remove the verb. So just add the des. So both are acceptable. Next. Okay, the last but not the least for this lesson 10 is the use of particle ya. Yeah, particle ya is similar with the use of n. So remember, no, n is used to connect words. So for example, beautiful and rich. So these are two words, so beauty and rich. But n could not be used to connect sentence for Japanese, no. So just as to and ya cannot never connect sentences. So you need to have soshite, ga, and kara, which connect sentences. Now, ya and to are both n for Japanese. However, there is a difference. So ya implies that there is other items that are not listed after mentioned two nouns. So meaning to say ya could be a representative of that items. But when you use to, it's very specific, meaning to say yun lang talaga siya. So example, buffet. So we're talking the buffet. Buffet wa sushi ya steak o tabemasu. So at the buffet, there is sushi and alike and steak. I eat it. Okay. So I will eat sushi and alike at steak at the buffet. Parang gano'n, no? Now, if we use particle to, which is very specific, kasi when you use to, you have to enumerate everything. So you have to exhaustively enumerate everything. when you use particle to. Example, buffet wa sushi to, sashimi to, tempura to, steak o tabemas. So meaning to say, yung sushi ya is a representative of this kind of food, which is a Japanese food or fresh food, no, from Japan. So yung sushi ya, okay, baka mamaya magkamali kayo, sir, di ba yung sushi ya, sushi store siya? Okay, for this one is hindi po siya store. You have to be aware also that when sushi is combined with ya, particle ya, it connotes the sushi and sort of, diba? Parang ganun siya. Or sushi, etc. and steak, ganun. So ganun yung meaning niya. So another thing is if I'm listing the, kasi nakakapagod naman, ililista mo lahat ng dala-dala mo, di ba? For example, grocery. So sa lahat ng grocery, kung 12 items siya, lahat yan, sasabihin ko if I use particle to. Now, if I use particle ya, I'm just going to say as follows, di ba? 12, let's say, binili ko 12 items. Pwedeng sabihin ko ng tatlong bagay. For example, kusuri ya. Or pwedeng sabihin na bread, pan ya, kusuri ya, Nikuya o kaimas. So I bought bread and things, medicine and things, and meat and things. Parang gano'n, no? Parang representative siya. So may kulang pa dun sa listahan. So parang representative lang siya ng, nire-represent siya ng meat, ng bread, at ng medicine. Diba? Pero kung gagamit akong particle to, N kasi, di ba? Uubusin ko lahat yan. So, meaning to say, from lahat ng pinamili mo, i-enumerate mo. Which is nakapagod. Okay? So, yun lang. So, this is quite an easy lesson kasi natapos yun na yung lesson 9, which is much difficult for this lesson. Ang mahirap lang dito would be the item number 4. You have to practice. You have to be aware of the preposition. Okay? So, it's very useful for instructions as well, for making your way in Japan. So, minasan, arigatou gozaimasu. At sama deshita. Kung may tanong kayo, maghiya itanong sa ating comment box. Salamat!